Hello and welcome back to the Two First Boxing Show, episode 16. Whether you're tuned in on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, thank you very much for joining me today. Obviously a little bit later than we usually do these in the week. I like to try and get them out on the Monday and Tuesday, but been away for a few days. Didn't really find the time to do it, which is a funny excuse when you're kind of away. But yeah, you know, just to kind of chill out really and sort of re-energise for the busy week ahead. A lot of boxing to kind of look forward to this weekend, and yeah, we had some boxing going on over the weekend. IBF world title fight in the featherweight division between Kid Galahad and Jazza Dickens. Yeah, we've got some great action to look forward to this weekend, although it's a shame because this is going to be the final week of fight camp, and I would have liked to have seen a fourth week. I believe there was 4 weeks last year, which kind of culminated with Dillian White getting knocked out by Alexander Povetkin. There was real drama there, so I don't know if this is really going to live up to that. I think where the UK specifically had been starved from boxing for so long last year, it hasn't quite gotten there. But yeah, we're going to talk obviously about Kid Galahad versus Jazza Dickens. It's kind of the result that I think everyone was expecting. I think Kid Galahad has just gotten better and better, and obviously so has Jazza Dickens, but Galahad's always just been that kind of a special talent in a lot of people's eyes. In the Ingle gym, he was always kind of the favourite in a way, was always the most praised in the gym. And I think, you know, on Saturday night that he really just did go out there and put his shots together nicely. The switch hitting, I think, is exactly what we kind of expected. And yeah, it just kind of broke Jazza Dickens down. I think it was very unfortunate for Jazza Dickens to suffer a cut in the first round. And it seemed to, you know, eventually just bother him and get worse and worse until they had to call it off in, I believe, the 11th round. And yeah, you know, I think Jazza Dickens can hold his head high. You know, he's had an unbelievable run recently, and you know, to go all the way to the top against a world-class fighter like Kid Galahad, you know, there's no misery in defeat, and yeah, I think he's done very, very well. I think Kid Galahad really has his options open. I really think there's going to be a round robin between, you know, sort of Josh Warrington, Lee Wood, newly crowned WBA champion. You've got Mauricio Lara, as well as many other very interesting fights in the featherweight division. If you were to ask me what I'd like to see next for Kid Galahad, I'm not too sure. It's a bit of a difficult one. I think the one that probably did stand out for me, which I think just stands out for any, you know, pretty decent fighter, any world-class fighter that I want to see them fight, is Gary Russell Jr. I'd love to see Kid Galahad take on Gary Russell Jr. You know, I think the unorthodox style of Kid Galahad against the sort of fast hands and movement of Gary Russell Jr. Makes for a very entertaining fight. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who would want to see that fight, and whether that's next or not, you know, he's just signed a new deal with Matchroom. I'm pretty sure he's got plenty of options which he can sit down with Eddie to discuss, and wish him all the best for the future. What a win! Now world champion, and has done very well to get there. Yeah, so that was the fight. What other stuff did we have happen? We had a couple of bits of news. So we got the Lomachenko versus Richard Commey, which is a fight very close to being made, obviously under Bob Arum's promotional banner, Top Rank. Yeah, I suppose I think everybody's kind of waiting, or at least the American audience. I'm not really too fussed about seeing Lopez Lomachenko 2, but a lot of people seem to be bothered about wanting to get that fight over the line as soon as possible. And obviously Lopez, his postponed clash with George Kambosos Jr. Makes it a little bit irritating for those people who really want to see that rematch. But yes, I'm just really not too bothered. I think, you know, Lopez kind of won that fight quite clearly. Don't really need to see a rematch. I'd rather see Lopez against Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, who am I missing? Devin Haney. So yeah, I don't know. Richard Commey though, I suppose is a good what is the word? I don't really want to insult him. I think it's just that knockout of Teofimo Lopez, or from Teofimo Lopez over Commey, is still very fresh in everyone's minds. Was a very good shot, and you can kind of question his chin, but Lomachenko isn't really the sort of same style or anything like that as Lopez, so I think you can expect a completely different fight. But yeah, no, good fight to make considering the circumstances. I think I'm still kind of expecting low-key for Lomachenko to go back down to super featherweight and have a go at the options there. I mean, you've got Berchelt, Oscar Valdez. There's a lot of good fights for him there. Just not too sure why he's pursuing this mountain task, really. I think he's set the bar too high for himself in trying to take on all the best lightweights in the world. All of them are a lot younger, a lot fresher, and are just naturally big for the weight, whereas Lomachenko, not the biggest lightweight, obviously, he's moved all the way up from featherweight. So yeah, just interested to see if that fight gets made, and we'll talk about more about that fight if it goes ahead. We've had a lot of success at the Olympics, which has been fun to watch. I haven't tuned in too much because it's completely different. We're trying to watch the Olympics, to be honest. So I've missed, Yafai winning gold, or I believe it. No, actually, I did see saw like some highlights. But Lauren Price winning gold. That was a real shame to miss that. Fraser Clark, I believe, fought Jalalov, which was a tough ask. And Ben Whittaker, I've seen everything over social media. Where he was at first, I think, just kind of bitterly disappointed that he wasn't able to get the gold. But yeah, I think, all of Team GB, I believe they've like set records and things like that. Fantastic display at Tokyo 2020, and very much just looking forward to whatever they decide to do next. I think a lot of them are looking to turn professional. Ben Whittaker and Yafai, most knowingly, I'm not too sure what the word is, but those two I believe will turn pro very, very soon. Got very good connections, obviously, and I think they'll both be a real strong force in the professional game. Pacquiao Spence is off. Shocked and annoyed, upset, I suppose. That was one of the best fights of the year that got made, and yeah, it's only a couple of weeks away. Or I think it was next weekend, I believe. Just a real shame, I suppose. It all happens because obviously Errol Spence didn't even know about this injury apparently, but during a pre-fight medical, revealed that he had a tear in his retina, or a retina tear. Somehow you word that better. Which has obviously forced him to withdraw from the fight, so it wasn't exactly as if anyone was pulling out the fight. And yeah, I believe, hopefully, they're going to reschedule it. Pacquiao still gets a fight, however. He's going to take on Yordenis Ugas for the WBA. Now the WBA Super Champion. Completely messy scenario if you've been around long enough to hear me rant about that situation. But yeah, he takes on Yordenis Ugas, who's, proved himself to be a very good welterweight recently. But coming against someone like Manny Pacquiao, it's going to be interesting. And yeah, I suppose we'll talk a little bit more on that next week. But just to let you guys know, obviously that's what's going on. And I just feel a bit bad for both guys, really. I feel bad especially for Pacquiao, and actually I suppose it's equally for both. Pacquiao's kind of been there and done it and is a living legend in the sport. Errol Spence is still looking for that defining fight, and I think Pacquiao would have been it. So yeah, I just really hope that we get to see that remade. I just look forward to still seeing Pacquiao in action. He's 42 years old. Still an incredible force and one of the top welterweights in the world. You very rarely see it. This caught my attention earlier today. Is David Avanesian is going to face Liam Taylor on October 2nd. The purse bids were won by Boxer, formerly known as Ultimate Boxer. And I don't really think that's the fight that everybody was expecting for David Avanesian. Liam Taylor, fought Chris Jenkins, a couple of years ago. Many years ago now, he fought Tyrone Nurse. Has never really succeeded at domestic level, but had a brilliant win over Darren Tetley in a very close fight where he was able to knock him down, and Tetley kind of creeping back up on the scorecards, but just edged him out, Taylor did. And yeah, it's for the European title, so I guess we'll see that at some time in October. Obviously, still to be confirmed and everything, but that's what all the sources seem to be saying. Hopefully, Abanesian can kind of, with the Boxer platform, put on a statement kind of win. And yeah, I think if he does that, then he definitely deserves his kind of time in the limelight, really. I think he really wanted a big fight. I think everyone was gunning for him to get a big fight. And hopefully we'll see that come a good victory on October 2nd. That's a small kind of prediction. I think it is a little bit of a mismatch, to be honest. I'm not too sure what the European board is really thinking there, but we'll just have to wait and see. I hope to be proven wrong, I really do. We're going to move on, obviously, to this weekend's fights. We've got the final fight camp event this weekend. And it's been a shame because obviously the last two have really been pissing it down weather-wise. But we have Joshua Buatsi versus Bolotniks. Real good step up for Joshua Buatsi. People have been kind of waiting for that for a very long time. He was meant to face Blake Caparello. That fight fell through. But yeah, I think this is the right time for Buatsi, and I think it's going to end up being a very entertaining fight. You kind of have to pit the brilliance of Joshua Buatsi and the pedigree and the amateurs against the really good run of Ricard's Bolotniks. It was a sensation really in the Golden Contract. Knocked out Stephen Ward, then went on to outpoint Jose Burton, who many kind of picked as a favourite to win the entire tournament. And then finished it off with a little dusting of Serge Michel. So yeah, I think, this is the kind of fight that Bolotniks kind of deserves. Buatsi is quite a big name in the UK, I believe. I like to think so. I'm not saying I believe, but yeah, I like to think that people consider him a big draw. It's never really in a dull fight, even though there can be mismatches, but always looks for the knockout and always, succeeds in doing so. Unbelievable power in his fists, and I think that against Bolotniks will be very interesting to see because we haven't seen Bolotniks really hurt in his last few fights. So whether Buatsi can kind of stop Bolotniks, I'm not too sure. I mean, he should have the quality and the I've forgotten his name, Virgil Hunter in his corner to kind of help him out of that scenario, any tricky scenarios that they may encounter. And I think he could potentially stop Bolotniks, but I'm going to say it will go to points. Bolotniks has just shown that kind of teak toughness in his last few fights and hasn't looked bothered at all. So it is a hard one to pick, but I think my prediction would be that Buatsi is going to take this one on points this weekend. But then again, a lot of my predictions are wrong, so who knows. I'd like to see the stoppage, but I don't know, maybe I need to look a little bit more into Bolotniks before that fight happens. Maybe there's a chink in his armour somewhere that they've kind of spotted, which they can expose. However, we've got on to the US fights. We've got Casimero versus Rigondale. Seen some very interesting stuff today and yesterday regarding this fight. Talking, you've got kind of one end which is like, Rigondale still is too old. But then the other is kind of like, Rigondale may be old, but the quality and what he can kind of kerfuffle, I think is a good word, Casimero with, is going to be really interesting. I think the straight left from Rigo is going to be a key factor in this fight. I think depending on how much he can really sort of use that, he's got brilliant footwork, can kind of move around Casimero's shots. And I think what you notice with Casimero is that a lot of his kind of knockout punches, a lot of people were saying that, you kind of fixate on his stoppage of Zolani Tete, which, really did come out of nowhere. I think he was putting in the work in, but it was just very sudden. A lot of people kind of fixate on that, but if you go back even further to Charlie Edwards, who I know was potentially not ready for that fight, but is, if you look at the fighter that he's grown into and the pedigree that he had in the amateurs, I think it's very important to look at. But the punches that Casimero tends to land are on the inside. That's where he generates all his power. So if Rigo's going to force him on the outside, like I think we really expect him to do, I think you might see Casimero maybe struggle and trying to walk into a shot every now and then. And I think Rigo may just catch him. And this is a bit of a gamble, I suppose. I'll really have to look into it a little bit more before I place my bets. But whether he stops him or not, I mean, I don't know. The odds on Rigo are really good. They're definitely expecting Casimero to pretty much walk through this kind of old veteran now. It feels weird to say that because he hasn't really had the defining fights in my eyes. I think there is a lot of potential for Rigondeaux to get the upset here, which sounds crazy. And yeah, I think he will do it. I really think he will. But whether he stops him or not, I'm not too sure. We know Rigondeaux has a hell of a lot of power as well, considering that he's stepped down from super bantamweight to bantamweight. Whether that's a good move at his age, not too sure. But I've seen him absolutely destroy guys in the past, and I don't think we should be writing him off this weekend. I really think that he could just bring the upset and potentially step Casimero late on. Just really depends how smart Casimero is going to play this. If he tries to force it on the inside too much, I think the brilliance of Rigondeaux is going to take those tools away from him, use his footwork, and just kind of smash him every now and then. And I think that will eventually take its toll. And if it goes that way, I think Rigondeaux will stop him. If not, I think Rigondeaux will get the nod on the scorecards for sure. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I think that's everything for today. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, please be sure to leave a like, comment something from me down below, and be sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube, follow the page on Facebook. If you're on Spotify, thank you very much for listening. I do apologise that I can sometimes ramble on or just kind of lose my train of thought. That does tend to happen. But yeah, thank you very much. I've now got another podcast to do, so I will see you next week. Enjoy this weekend's boxing. And yeah, see you then.